I'm Sam Schaefer, project manager. I've been at Agos for over 16 years now. I've dedicated my career to educational facility design. My role as project manager, what that really means is you can think of it as kind of a hub and spoke. I'm making sure the wheels are all turning with the team. And beyond that, I'm in charge of communication, budget, schedule, but I'm also in charge of making sure that we have an inclusive environment for this team to be very creative thinkers and think outside the box, because this is a very constrained and complex project. I want to make sure we bring our best thinking into that environment. I'm just really excited to provide the continuity from Stevens and then just renew our commitment to Port Angeles.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lindsay Crawford, and as project architect for this project, I am responsible for ensuring that the district's vision for their new high school is code compliant, it's thoroughly documented, and within budget. I practiced architecture for 30 years, and largely in the public school realm, working with districts of all sizes and projects of all sizes, small to large, complex high school projects, many with auditoriums that need to be rebuilt. And so I'm very familiar with this construction type, and I find auditorium projects like particularly compelling for me personally. I was a band member in high school, and that was my way into the high school community. That was my friend group, and I learned so many things beyond just the skills of playing clarinet. I gained community and friendships that have lasted kind of my lifetime. So I know how valuable and important that aspect to a high school experience is for students. And ultimately, when I think of Port Angeles, it is for me a place of adventure. I brought my family up here to begin our hikes up in the mountains. And I also brought my, I want to say, humble sailboat up here and experienced arrival by water to your port, stayed a few nights to enjoy the hospitality of your town. So I would be honored to be a part of your new adventure, which is designing and building your new high school.
And I'm Eric Peterson. My role on the project as project designer is to really hear your vision and understand your vision and help focus those ideas into a really quality learning environment and cohesive campus for Port Angeles High School. And I'm just really honored also to be a part of this project, knowing that this high school is going to impact over 50,000 graduating seniors over the next 50 plus years, and many times over audience members in the Performing Arts Center and for athletic events as well. So hugely important project, and really understand the responsibility also that comes with it. And to get us started today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what it means to be a secondary learner and a high school student, and then also talk about how we engage with the community, the Lower Elwha tribe, and everyone that's a part of this project to make sure that we're understanding the ed specs and the district standards for the project. Like I said, I want to talk about what it means to be a high school student. You've maybe heard a little bit about what it means to be a middle school student and elementary school student from us already, but what's really important is to understand, because students are at the core of this project, that understanding what it means to be a high school learner is critical to our process. And a high school student is leaving middle school. It's a new experience. You're entering a wider world with new possibilities and new passions to be discovered. And it's an opportunity to explore those passions and test some of those passions and make connections with other students and staff, and really kind of set yourself up for what's coming after secondary school. The exploration is also belonging on campus is really critical to that comfort that's required to feel like you can explore new opportunities. And the very first thing that affects that feeling of belonging is how you arrive. and the front door, and that kind of projection into the community that really signifies the identity of campus and a feeling of pride in your school and your place in your home. And in addition to those things, the other thing that really contributes to that feeling of belonging is the quality of the space. So some of those elements that we like to work with, daylight, super critical both to impacts on mood and feelings, but we know from studies that daylight impacts the students' abilities to learn. And so really being a careful consideration to where daylight is introduced into the project, as well as the physical materials, and making sure that there's a feeling of the space really belonging on the site and being of the place that it's from. And here in Port Angeles, that might mean, you know, wood and really quality materials that make you feel comfortable at home. And then those qualities really impact this feeling of value. You know, this is an investment in the students. And, you know, I think that investment is felt when you're on campus and kind of gives you the encouragement to feel like you're allowed to explore and find those new passions. So super critical to the quality of the new campus. In addition to those feelings of value, we need to make sure we're supporting students and staff and the rest of the community to make sure everyone feels included and that we're breaking down any kind of barriers to all of those opportunities that are available to students, and that everyone feels like they have a place in the school and are feeling comfortable and want to be there. So with that, I will
That's great. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that, all the considerations, what goes into designing for high school learners. I do want to hit on how we engage with the tribes, specifically the Lower Delaware tribe. Integris does have a long history working with tribes throughout the state. And specifically, we've had a great experience on Stevens Middle School with the PACAC there. And more specifically, Carmen, who I think just popped in, so really excited to see that she's going to be on the high school PACAC. We developed a really strong working relationship with Carmen. This just highlights some of the work we're trying from taking her apart and putting it into Stevens Middle School. But it's also about working with her and with the tribe for creating an inclusive, welcoming environment, making sure that voice is seen in the school. That's the front entry to Stevens, and our work there just shows that being very thoughtful in every move that we make through ed specs and through design. And then also wanted to hit on, it's not just working with Carmen through the PACAC. We've worked with Jonathan Arakawa going into his space. I think the really understanding what those specific needs are in the space and what amenities we need to provide for those different types of learners and those different types of activities that happen in those classrooms. These are a couple photos from his classroom actually, and then the notes that we've taken from that. And just to highlight one of those is this idea of, you know, we just need a sink in there for seed or for our basket weaving opportunities. Really understanding those needs so we can provide those opportunities for all the different types of learners that we have. And we're especially excited to bring that forward into the high school. I think that would be really a fantastic journey to go on. Moving into the ed specs. With ed specs, our process for the high school is going to be very much grounded in our experience from Stevens Middle School. This just kind of highlights a series of meetings that we'll have. Don't read it too much. It's just, this is actually from Stevens, but this idea that we're able to have a series of engagement sessions, and really the ed specs is about establishing the guiding principles for the project. We've learned to be very inclusive in those, and I believe through the tools that we use, whether it be models or whether it be images, to really understand what it means to be a Port Angeles High School student. And I think We also are going to bring some new tools in because middle schoolers are different than high schoolers. We've definitely learned that there's a lot of different ways high schoolers like to communicate. One of those ideas is QR codes that lead to surveys and questionnaires so they can fill those out on their own time and not have to be in another class. And then also we've used social media tools to do what we call a day in life, to really understand what that culture is around the high school and bring that forward, integrate that into the ed specs and bring that forward to the PACAC. So I'm really excited for that process. And then I think working concurrently with the ed spec, with the elementary school ed specs, we would definitely propose some meetings together, whether it be that kickoff meeting or very early in the process to establish an understanding that everything that comes out of the PACACs needs to be in support of the district's vision and the district's goals. And so whether it be a kickoff meeting or early in the process, we've highlighted in red there sort of when we would do shared meetings with the PACAC for the elementary school to make sure we are in that district alignment. And for certain, when we start moving into systems and standards, that's when we can work really well with the elementary school PACAC. We've done it on many projects. We've got several districts that have gone through multiple buildings with either same architects or multiple architects, and work collaboratively together to make sure that we're ensuring that the standards are the same for all districts.
So I'm going to talk about building standards. That would be structural systems and materials that go into the building, creating standards for the whole district. We've done that for projects in school districts across the state of Washington and really the Pacific Northwest, so we're deeply familiar with the process to do that, engage the maintenance and operations groups to identify the appropriate materials and standards to create the standards for the projects. We would be working closely with them, closely with the elementary school team to ensure there's a single standard that we move forward with in our projects and also anticipating future projects to accommodate those as well. So we began this process with Stevens Middle School, and we look forward to really expanding that process into the high school standards. I'll talk a little bit about sort of the detail of what goes into that, what the process is. Like I said, work closely with the M&O group, and we can define some of the criteria. One of them would be the total cost of ownership of materials and systems. There's a first cost, there's a maintenance cost, and then a replacement cost down the line. So we really need to look at the total cost for materials and systems to help evaluate which are the right choices for this project. It's a long, complex sort of process that we'll go through, and really we should be detailed, make the right choices for that. Durability of materials is one of the criteria, clearly important. We're in a coastal marine environment. We've worked in many coastal marine environments, of course, with Steve as well. So we know those challenges and making sure we specify materials and set a standard to accommodate those challenges. And on the interior of the school buildings, we know how challenging students can be on materials and surfaces. I raised 3 boys in my house, and so I'm deeply familiar with that concept of durable materials. And then the other important factor is sort of continuity of systems between buildings. So the M&O group has simplifies a sort of ordering process for filters and parts. This is a sort of savings opportunity for the district if we have the ability to bulk order the same types of products and make it consistent between buildings. It just makes it a lot simpler, easier, and less expensive in terms of operational costs. It also is really important for their educational of their staff. It's if they can move from building to building and they're similar systems, it's just less complications in terms of learning curves between buildings. It keeps it simpler. The last thing I want to talk about is how the energy code impacts this. Every 3 years, our state energy code is updated and improved upon, sometimes maybe more restricted. We like to be some clairvoyant about that and look at the drafts of the energy code coming up and ensure that we're anticipating where that is going, so that as we pick systems in the future projects would be where pick systems would be compliant with that future energy code. give it to you, Frank, you know, you're probably, I mean, that's more than once.
Yeah. No, thanks. So let's move into how we're going to manage the project. As Amy said, we're going to hit on budget, schedule, and how we interact in the qualities of GCCM. And so I love that you phrased bring us a project that was a great project on a tight budget. And we want to bring forward Tyee High School as that example. I think from Tyee, there's some similarities bringing forward on that you have at Port Angeles High School. Tyee was an open campus, had multiple access points. I think they had almost as many exterior doors as Port Angeles High School, pretty close. And so safety and security was just a major factor on that. We had students leaving the campus, coming on, you didn't know who was who, and so we had a lot of problems to solve there. We also had a fixed budget. We started design on this project prior to COVID, and so prior to the pandemic, so a lot of challenges with budget there. And then also we had a lot of unforeseeable conditions and some poor soils that we had to deal with, and bringing forward those lessons learned. Excuse me. At Tyee, we're also bringing forward, I think, really excited to continue our relationship with Banner. I think some of the folks from Banner that are finishing up our project at Tyee will be transitioning over to the high school here, so to continue that continuity of relationships is really important to us. I talked a little bit about how this started planning in COVID, and all of the cost uncertainty, all of the extreme escalation, and then all of the long lead time items that came with that. And so that pause with COVID did allow us to reevaluate our strategies for how we approach the site, how we approach where we're putting money into temporary construction, how we're moving students around on site, and really streamlining that and taking that money, finding ways to take that money and put it into the final permanent solution for teaching and learning. We had add alternates that we identified early on in the project and kept those throughout the entire project. Those were also continually updated with multiple cost estimators and cost estimates throughout the project to ensure we had accurate pricing going on. And with those add alternates, I think I think we're seeing some of those strategies of success at Stevens Middle School. So very similar, bringing that forward to at Port Angeles High School. And then finally, we are thrilled to say that it came in under budget. It's going to be completed in construction this coming up. They're going to be having students in there next month. So I don't have any of those finished pretty pictures to show you. But we do have, the big thing was an identifiable entry as we go onto the site. They actually didn't have a front door, you couldn't find it. And so making sure we have an identifiable front door, front entry for that community. And so along with coming in under budget and staying under budget through construction, even with all the poor soils that we've had and all the unforeseen conditions, we also implemented a lot of sustainability strategies that are above and beyond the code and above and beyond the district standards and specs. We did this because we found that through the life cycle cost analysis on a lot of these systems, over the course of the age of the building for operating costs, we really brought that down. And I'm just really proud to say that through a lot of these strategies, this is now one of the most efficient buildings in the district, and it's going to be, it saves them money throughout the years for the next 50 years. So how are we going to take that approach to Port Angeles High School? And so thinking about the schedule, we're starting to develop that more than what you've seen in the SOQ there. But a few things to hit on for how we're going to get this project done by 2029 is, and you've already done a few things of establishing stakeholders and have them be part of the early process. That's really important for decision making, so I can bring that engagement forward, because then we need to start working with our permitting agency. There's going to be a lot of complications in here, working with the city of Port Angeles and their permitting department, making sure we have those permits in hands early. And what that means, why we need those permits in hand early is, and decisions made early with the stakeholders, is so that we can create clear documentation to share with you, to share with your community, but also clear documentation so that when we are going bidding, that we get the best bids and the best price on bid day. We also do that by incorporating GCCM early in the process. I think a lot of you have experience with that on Stevens Middle School. That's just invaluable in terms of working with them on schedule and local contractor outreach, and then also this idea of how we can work with them to develop earlier bid packages, whether it be for the site or the structure. If we can get on and start construction earlier, it can be done earlier, which is going to save money, and it's also going to be able to minimize disruptions on the site for the students.
Well, I'm going to respond to some of the questions you asked regarding the advantages of GCCM and how it can ensure project success. We fundamentally think it's a really important way of procuring construction services early and seeing the project move really smoothly through our entire construction process, both in schedule and budget and in our constructability documentation period. Those are all big advantages I'd like to talk about. Now, when we look at your project, you can see it's clearly going to be a multi-phase project, and one of our primary concerns is we'll have construction activities occurring at the same time that we have students occupying, and we need to make sure that those are clearly defined, and working with the general contractor early really helps us understand what their needs are, ensure that we're documenting the right scope for each of the phases, ensuring that we have safe, occupiable spaces that are clean and healthy for the students' learning activities. We also need to talk about the schedule flexibility, and that's one of the huge advantages to GCCM, is we can rearrange how we bid the project depending on certain conditions that occur. Sometimes things that are maybe a surprise to us are unknown. So I'm going to use this project as an example. It's South Whitby high school, middle school project. The story here is that there's a lot of site work and there's a lot of interior and exterior work in the building. Our site use permit was 14 months out in terms of total review duration, so it was really impacting how we looked at the project. So what we did working with the GCCM was to compact that schedule a little bit by issuing early bid documents for the interior, the exterior roof, and the wall systems that we were refurbishing, and not impacting the site use permit. So we were allowed to do that and move forward, and we compressed the overall schedule by 6 months. So we can just see that was immediately incredibly helpful and ultimately saved the district's money because we're shortening the duration of the project. Next one, there we go. Okay, so we're also going to talk about budget and what would be a presentation without a spreadsheet no one can read. So really what you need to see is the red bucket, and I think you can't miss that. So I want to talk about there's opportunities to work with the GCCM on how we strategically control the budget. And each of those line items you see on that spreadsheet there is defining a target value for particular systems within the building and materials. When we explore setting up those target values for them, we're looking at multiple different types of systems and determining which ones will, so that would be like wall systems, roof systems, mechanical systems, electrical systems, ensuring what that value required to support the project will be. And then we look, working with the M&O team, making sure we're complying with the standards, developing standards, pick those systems, set that target value, and when we sum up all the target values, it ends up all in the big bucket, which is the total project cost. If we find as we move along through the project, it is exceeding the bucket, starts to overflow, we can look back at that target value and determine where those issues might be and reassess those choices and come back to it and ensure we manage the budget as we move through the whole project. Another huge aspect of working with GCCM is working on old buildings often, and clearly with your lovely auditorium building, we'll be working with on old and many unknown conditions will occur. And so we look for the opportunity for doing early on-site investigations. And this is an image of one of those early on-site investigations for Seaton's Middle School gym, which we incorporated in the project. We're looking at old drawings that are, decades old. They have so much information, but not all of it. So not all of those are, there's a lot of unknowns. We like to reduce the overall risk to the project by discovering the unknowns and incorporating them into the project by doing some destructive testing sometimes. Sometimes it's just a radar and determining what the rebar and course, it's are within the wall. But there's various strategies that we employ, and we work with the GCCM to gather that information. This will move forward. And so this will sort of lead into our discussion of our auditorium. And I do that because it clearly will be a lot of early on-site investigations. And so we already kind of started that a bit. We're very familiar with this building. We did the building survey for that recently. So our structural team, in-house structural team is deeply familiar with it. And so I sat down with Rob Graper, our structural engineer in-house, and we looked at what would we need to do for this theater building. What were the first steps that we need to take structurally to understand how the building was built? And looking at the 1958 drawings, he identified several key components that we need to understand more deeply. So the GCCM would be able to facilitate that, open up things, or take on those tests to determine the information that we need to provide our structural engineer to stabilize the building. And then there's that little surprise there, which is that little black box. That's a Matterport camera. And I just want to touch on that for a moment because it's pretty cool. It's pretty new technology that I can't imagine doing these projects without now that I have it. And it basically creates a photographic three-dimensional model of the building that we can access on our website. And we use it all the time within our meetings with our consultant team, with the district, to look at existing conditions, and we can measure it, actually measure the dimensions in the images, and just walk through as if you're in the building. It's so good, it's hard to believe it works that well. So I just wanted to share that little piece.
Yeah, that was instrumental with Stevens, Jim. And then, talking specifically about your auditorium, it is a gem. It's beautiful. We know that. We want to make sure that as we're going through, as Lindsay was talking about, all the structural improvements that we need to do. We know we need to do a lot with ADA in there. All of our goals are about preserving and enhancing the experience that we already have in that space. We know that this is one of the biggest venues that we have for gathering for performance, basically on the whole peninsula. And maintaining that quality that we have for that. We have been diving into the spaces already, as Lindsay mentioned, and I just want to hit on our extended team has a lot of experience in terms of renovation and new construction on on performing arts centers and auditoriums. And so our acoustical consultant, our theater consultant, we've worked with them on several projects, whether it be kind of a smaller, more intimate space such as Vashon Island High School, which was maybe a little bit more about drama, or Juanita High School or White River High School, which are these big, large venues. And so bringing that experience with our extended consultant team. And I think one of the key highlights is, as Lindsay mentioned, we have in-house structural. So we're able to test those ideas right away, be able to bring that forward to you and to the BAC to really see what solutions we need to have for acoustics in that space, understanding the reverberation times, the diffusion, the acoustics, everything that goes into an auditorium. Also including where that sound station is, where those light controls are, because we want to bring teaching and learning into the space a little bit more. It's not only about the experience that you come in as a patron, it's also about how do we learn how to do a good performance. That's the stage, and so this is just a few pictures of Central Kitsap High School in Vashon. We're really thoughtful in terms of the placement of that sound station and lighting control. So bringing in while we're teaching and learning, having that at the forefront of the auditorium as well. And then as we get in, we know there's a lot of work that we need to do around accessibility. I bring this image in here because this is a community theater we did for ADA upgrades. And there's two images here. There's one that we always think about how do we bring someone in at an accessible route to the seats to watch a performance? but it's also the backup house. How do the performers also have that accessibility? We need to think holistically about that. So a lot of different strategies that we can employ, but it's not just about what seats can we have, about how is this experience for everyone that's in the product. And then I want to hit real quick a case study that we had. So we see a lot of similarities for Port Angeles High School. This is Shorecrest High School over in Shoreline School District. You see on the right-hand side that existing building there, that top peak there that we see on the existing, that's that little gray box that's on that red field over there. So this is essentially the same photo of that. same perspective. Shorecrest High School, the auditorium there was, again, it was a beloved gem for that community, but it lacked a lot of those facilities to make it a really true community facility in the high school. What we did is look at what was working and enhance what didn't. And so we created support spaces around it, such as the lobby space, gathering space, and then also, as you can see from this photo, hopefully a very identifiable entry and wayfinding. How do we get to the Performing Arts Center from the community? You can see that ramp up there, how do we provide AD accessibility there? And then a big component of Shorecrest High School, the Performing Arts Center, it didn't have any backup house support spaces, and so going through and really making this a project that had all of those support spaces such as green rooms and waiting rooms, but then also classrooms right adjacent back to it. And so it went from sort of this auditorium kind of Performing Arts Center to a true Performing Arts Center that the whole community was able to use. So really excited to bring some of those lessons learned to Port Angeles High School.
So I want to dive a little bit more specifically to your site, what it means to be an occupied site, and also looking forward to future development and planning. As an occupied site, we know there's going to be a lot of complexities, and we've done a lot of projects that are very complex like this, but your project really is unique, so a really critical piece of this will be identifying your priorities, things, the operations that need to make sure they're still in operation, like the district kitchen or access to the Performing Arts Center, and really balance those with cost and schedule and make sure we're understanding the appropriate times to be doing the kinds of work that we need to be doing. And like I said, there's all these layers, and what's really critical is that we're creating a cohesive and continuous experience for all students on campus throughout the whole course of the project, which is this project and the next phase that can be over the next 10 years. And a couple of the ways that we do that Sam and Lindsay have already touched on is schedule, aligning construction schedule with academic schedules, performing arts schedules, athletic schedules, and then schedules for events on campus outside of normal school hours. The other thing we do is make sure that we're separating construction activity from school-related activities, and making sure we have a plan for doing that and having clear communication to students, staff, but also we have to communicate to the city and you guys to make sure that you know all the things that are happening in all the different phases. And so what you're seeing here is an example of some drawings that might go to the city that really show all those complex layers that we're having to lay out for each phase of the project. And another thing, looking forward to the development of the site, one thing we really need to be thinking about is the types of infrastructure that are going in each phase of the project, and thinking ahead to the cohesive whole at the end and what future development might be happening, whether it's increased enrollment or changing access needs for the site, and thinking about things like stormwater management that might be able to go in early in one phase to make sure you're looking ahead to future field development or parking development. Same with building systems, plumbing, electrical, that can be easily expanded or reconfigured in a much shorter period of time rather than being a whole new phase of the project if future adaptation needs to occur. And then more specifically about the cohesive campus, I want to talk a little bit about placemaking. When we arrive here in Port Angeles, we're just struck by the situation between the mountains and the sea, and how how beautiful this place really is. We know Port Angeles High School is situated a little ways up on the hill and has a really phenomenal view of things, and has some really nice adjacencies to the Peninsula College and then also Olympic National Park. And then we know Civic Field, where all the football and baseball games are played. Being aware of those kind of connections near the campus is really critical. And just the feeling that we get here in this place and the change that occurs as you move up and down the hill towards the sea or towards the mountains and then through the seasons. And a day like this morning, or whether it's clear and beautiful, and really capturing that feeling on campus and making sure that it has a clear identity, but it's also very much capturing what makes this place so special. And so, in the last few minutes that we have here, I want to make sure if we can get you all out of your chairs and come gather around the site model that we've created. I'd like to take an opportunity to talk through some of the things we're seeing on site and really use this tool that we love to use to really understand a lot of the visions and critical things that we can discover on site. So just to orient you guys a little bit, we've got our site here. The mountains are towards me, and the sea is downhill towards all of you. We've got the white blocks here represent the existing campus that we know is slated to be replaced in this phase of the project. And then we've got this anchor, the gem of the Performing Arts Center that we know we're going to be modernizing. And then these blocks here, the gym and the CTE spaces are here, knowing that that's coming in phase 3. Whether those are modernized or replaced will be part of this project. And I'm going to hand out some of these blocks. You're seeing these are the classroom explore blocks. We've got this connect block that's like our common space, social space, support spaces here. Often near the entry to make sure we're all safe and secure, and then discover space here. That would be like the library or other kind of research-based places. So let's start out. I really want to touch on arrival to campus right now, and maybe I can hear from some of you where you would arrive to the school. I'll put it down.
And I don't do maps so well.
So this
Where's
is
the tennis courts?
The tennis courts right here.
Are here, okay. So this is Park.
Yeah. This is South Peabody over here.
And this is where the buses line up.
And what about
This is the covered walkway right here.
the little curve that's right now, the drop off and pick up from here?
That's
So I'm gonna put it in the middle of the road because I'm dangerous.
So they arrive in the parking.
You're right in
Yeah,
the
you're
parking
right
lot.
in the middle of the, yeah. I mean, I see the whole building going up here.
Right, but so current, yeah, so
We're
current.
talking current.
Currently, where do you-
This is where we are
There
currently.
you go,
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
there you go.
And so if someone's coming into a performing arts, like the public has access to the Performing Arts Center, how do they generally?
But then I need another way, they come this way.
They come this side there? And so we know this is the kind of the intended entry, but ultimately they come through.
Come here and then go, what the
Yeah. How about for,
Horrible.
yeah.
Horrible. For old people, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
And that's who goes to the symphony.
Right.
Yeah.
If you go into the symphony and you look at that auditorium full, everyone has hair like that. I am serious. I'm a symphony attender and we're all, 80% are over 60. Okay, there are no bathrooms, you're trying to get up the steps. People have to come around. If they're in a wheelchair, they have to come around over here and come in this door.
Wow.
They can't, these are steps, and you can't, if you're in a wheelchair, you can't get up there.
Yeah, so there's really
We
no
have time or whatever.
clear access and certainly no
it's
accessible
horrible.
access, yeah.
And where would we hope to have that entry?
That's what I want to get to. So one of the things that's gonna happen is this campus is going to get removed, or we're gonna replace. So now you can see like possibilities are opened up. So where would we like to approach the new campus, knowing that there's space here to build a new campus? If you wanna start putting down, in your box, right in the front. So it's important to you guys that that's forward facing on Park, where there's a lot of access, people coming in. So bringing these things out front.
And we have handicap park that was
Yeah.
built,
Yeah.
and so that's right over here.
But now with the new campus, there's new opportunity here to reorient that arrival potentially to the front.
For the auditorium, yeah.
And so that could become the auditorium. Or the question might be, is that access going to be the same for the school and the auditorium? And maybe there's a shared front door that everyone approaches.
No,
And-
that's so much, well, it could be. So that's, I want everything here, just put everything.
Well, there you go.
Those views.
That's great. Well, I do want to make sure we're not cutting out question time. So this was really short and really great, but I look forward
Support
to.
are similar to welcome. We use different words because high school has a lot more than just welcome. Support, welcome, counseling, all the pieces that really support the student, because that career center could be in there. So discover,
Like a
that's
library.
our libraries.
And one of the
Yeah, I
things.
want everything here.
As you can see, we are excited for
The
this
views,
project.
this
Yeah.
is okay.
Yeah, right above, yeah.
And,
So,
All right.
all
yeah.
right, well, we probably need to return to our seats because your notes are at your table.
Yes. Okay.
You want to answer? All right.
So it's question and answer time. Okay, do they have any burning questions, or do we want to sort of go where we went yesterday?
I have burning questions.
All right.
Okay, school. Right now, if you're in a wheelchair and you're a student, I don't know how, I've never figured out how you get to class. I don't get it. So ADA and safety are two things I'm really interested in, is access and safety of the students. I'm with Sarah, I want the school to go up. This $50 million is just so scary to me, I can barely stand it. It's not good, and it's not good. The other thing that I'm most interested in are the bathrooms. We have so many problems, so many problems with the girls' bathrooms. I mean, it's such a big issue, you would not even believe it. So I want to really make sure that what you brought to us at Stevens, the bathroom situation, is just fabulous. I love that. I mean, it solves such a huge problem that I would like to know. I mean, there's so many more students up there, how that's going to work, how the bathroom stuff is going to work. That's really important. The teaching, learning, and the classrooms themselves, I think you did such a good job with the teachers and the children when you worked with them at Stevens. I was just thrilled with how you did that. And I think it's gonna make Stevens a much better school for staff. Having been a teacher all my life, where you work is very important. And if you have lots of light, daylight, it's very important. I'd also like to be sure that we take advantage of the Salish Sea. We're up on a hill. There's all ways you can look at that. It's just wonderful. Right now, it's just even getting to class, I don't know how to do it. I really don't. So that's one of my concerns, the auditorium, as a symphony person, I just dread going. Now that I've gotten older, it used to not bother me at all. I've been here 23 years now, it bothers me to try to get into the auditorium. And I see my fellow aged folks trying to get there on a lot of us go Saturday morning now rather than Saturday night. At night, I wouldn't dare go up there anymore because you can't see. You know, you can't see where you're going. It's just poorly lit. It's just horrible. I'm telling when I want them to do. Well, here's the question, can you do all that?
Of course we can do all that. We are legal designers, and that's our job. Our job is to make sure all spaces are inclusive for everyone, that they're safe, and every student feels welcome, secure, and they belong. And there's a lot of strategies that we used for comprehensive high schools. For Tyee, we were able to put all the public amenities on one side and all the classrooms on the other. So there's clear designated separation between public and student areas. We also employed the Stevens restrooms at Tyee High School, and we just have more of those pods. We don't have more, like 10 all together. We just have more smaller pods the size of Stevens spaced throughout the building. Trying to think of what other question. There were a couple of questions.
I've got a few written down.
Here you go.
I'll take this one because I've got 6 bullet points here, Sandy, and we're gonna get there. But I think it was, you talked about how do we do all this, like how do we even do this? And I think, especially you mentioned the teachers, that's that ed spec process. That's the process that we have. We don't know how we're gonna do that right now. We need to listen to you. We need to find that out. We need to talk to all the teachers. We need to have, I think one of the most eye-opening things that happened at Stevens was our day of, all 3 of us went out there and watched the arrival sequence at Stevens, and that was eye-opening. We're gonna do that same thing here. We're gonna be on site watching, see how it works. We need to learn that before we can solve that. And so we're really excited for that. So I think that's where it comes from. And, I think the place with the a lot of daylight and views, that's almost kind of solved for us. But we're gonna take advantage of that and make sure we bring forward that we have the right priorities for you for what needs those views and how we need to zone that site.
I just have a question. This is a kind of once in a lifetime opportunity for these kiddos, right? Some of them are going to start as freshmen, they're going to watch this process. How are you going to integrate there so they get kind of a lens to your craft, right? Because that's something these kids are going to be looking for their future, what they want to do. How do we get them in?
I think this is a really good opportunity to work with Gunnar and his TSA program, especially the students there that are focused in architecture and engineering. Just bringing them into the listening process. Maybe they sit with us and see how we do it. Maybe they sit in a meeting with the general contractor and Integris and the owner, and we're talking about mechanical systems and the pros and cons of different things. So that's one way to do that. Plus, it's an occupied site, putting those little viewing areas so that the students can watch the construction go up. And we could work with the teachers on, let's say, stormwater management. We could work with the science teacher and talk about the water quality. And so there's many ways and many different topics we can work with the teachers on if they want to. We don't want to add extra work to them, but we're always willing to participate, go into a class and present on CTE or what we do or landscape.
I don't want to pile on too much, but the gem of this project is that auditorium, and I would love to take some students around touring different auditoriums, bringing them in as we're working with our acquisition, to understand how sound bounces off walls, so they can understand really what it means to be in that space, and really how you can actually tune a building to what you want, just like a piano. So I think there's a lot of learning opportunities with that one with some of the music and performance students.
Anyone here? No? Stan? Okay, so do you want to go Nolan and then Michelle, or?
So you've been around to hear me talk about community and how big a community the district plays just a role in the community. So what are the ways that you can bring the community in to benefit us for when we're bidding, benefit us for when we're designing this building? Just talk about your outreach for what we're doing, please.
Who wants to start with the GCCM and the bidding? How to reach out for the community?
Okay, yeah, I'll take it on. So GCCM is one of those opportunities for expanding bidding opportunities to smaller contractors, local contractors as well, and really getting sort of more regional, local support for the project. They have programs installed within their organization to support those smaller contractors, and we work with them to devise scopes of work that would make sense and make sure we're entertaining these many opportunities to engage local construction contractors in specific scopes of work. So when we're talking about a high school, of course, many of the scopes are kind of huge and require large mechanical contractors or large electrical contractors. So we look for those opportunities closely with them to devise that, and with our consultant team as well, and support that with the general contractor's help.
And because we're going GCCM, there's also the potential to go ECCM or NCCM, where we bring the large mechanical and a large electrical, and then they can start the process of reaching out to the local labor unions in the area ahead of time and bringing on a smaller sub consultant underneath them, because their scope is electrical, lighting, data. So there's different opportunities for them to have smaller packages for local contractors, especially given the size of this project, the amount of bonding requirements that they need. Some of the smaller local contractors don't have that. So that's why we need to really make the scope biddable for them. Then you want to talk about engagement?
I really do want to talk about engagement. No, it is, like I mentioned, our engagement process is grounded sort of in that experience that we've had here with Stevens. I think we're going to be able to, with the high school, it is such a higher profile that we're definitely going to be at the winter concert. We're going to be setting up those listening stations that we need for the community. I think that there is more opportunity here, whether it be setting up a website or being just accessible to the public or in the community. I think that's a really big component of it. I think there's going to be more presentations that we'll be doing in a community format than just the PAC, to make sure that that process is transparent, so that the ultimate goal is to continue the trust that you've already built with your community and bring that forward, because you're not done with just the space. We have another 40 years of working together.
And if need be, we have the opportunity to rent the office to make sure that we're here for those community engagements.
Thank you. So this is a complicated site, right, from top to bottom, as we can see there. And so we know that there's going to be lots of involvement with other stakeholders. Can you tell us more about your plan to ensure a smooth process as relates to not only bids, but permitting?
I already talked my language. Yeah, so our strategy for getting permits, working with the authorities have jurisdiction is to get with them early. Like we have a early kickoff meeting with, say, the site use permit, site development permit, and that's typically a requirement, but we go there very well prepared, fully understanding all of the complexities of the site with our landscape and civil engineer support. And so we know what kind of concerns they might have, anticipate those types of concerns, and we can and listen and hear them speak to those concerns. So we're ready to respond with our building design to support that. In terms of building, other types of permits like building permits, again, we meet early with the building official and show them how we're going to be doing this phasing. That's one of the biggest challenges with permitting is getting that sort of knowledge between how we're safely occupying the site and having construction, how we're managing all the fire alarm, life safety services in the building, how do we make sure they're operational and functioning throughout the construction project, how we make sure we have egress and safe exiting from the building throughout, and it changes often as we develop the project. Certain events will change, so we have to review each of those plans with the authority having jurisdiction. Sure, they are in agreement that we've got the best solution to maintain safety on site, and it really facilitates getting the permits once they have that sort of trust and understanding that we know how to do this properly, and we're communicating that very clearly to them that we have a safe and sound plan to carry through.
To just add on to that, I think it's all about starting that communication early, as Lindsay said, and we have that continuity of team members from our extended consultant team that has done successful permitting with Stevens Middle School. But also it does kind of come back to the district a little bit. I was really excited to see an ad in yesterday's DJC. You're already getting your traffic engineer out there. You're already getting your geotech engineer. Getting those on early is what we need to have for this project. And that is going to be the success of working with permitting in all different jurisdictions.
Okay, so,
Is the model a fairly accurate? Is the model a fairly accurate representation of the size of the property?
Yeah, we did
Okay, thank you.
a very close investigation to try to build this to really start to understand what's going on.
That's a big piece of property.
There's a lot of it, but there's also a lot going on and a lot to consider.
And then seeing the building all squished in one.
okay, with that, you have a minute or so to do your wrap up.
Well, thank you guys so much for engaging with us and having a dialogue. This project is so important to the community, and we were there with you on election night when the bond was passing, and the energy, and this was the key project on that bond, and we just want to continue having that energy and making sure your next bond goes. So I want to have a PAC on the same day of the election for the next bond, because it was so fun. But I want to follow up with, we've done many high school projects, we've done many auditoriums, and a lot on occupied sites. And we know the importance of keeping the kids safe, but there's also the other critical importance that we want to make sure we work with the contractors. The students are still on site, they need to learn. So minimizing noise when certain construction, when testing is happening. So working with you in the district and the school to make sure we're giving the optimal learning environment from day one to the day that we're off-site. Because there might be a couple students there that might only be there during construction and might not enjoy the new building. So we want to not gyp them from quality education. So thank you, and we are super excited and thrilled about this project.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Now's the awkward time to watch it back up.
Just leave it at that.
Thank
I know, right?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks very much.
It's really nice to meet you. Good to see you. Good to have you.
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
He's throwing things.
The other thing is, in Sarah,
You get our thumb drive in.
So who is the major models?
And then we have some of our research in the UW and
Legos and models and shop.
Yeah. So hopefully, did you see how cool that auditorium piece was?
Oh, yeah, I was wondering if we can.
that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the plexiglass. It's a little specialized one. You said no doubt. And we put the graphic on the bottom. Just kind of.
So you said
We use the old, check out the Wi-Fi, remember that one? How much
Yeah.
is cool it is.
Yeah.
and they had a small set.
I did, I saw that.
I mean, they're better, because they do all their stores.
Perfect, oh, thank you so much.
Plus building the house.
Perfect. Very cool.
I'll go up. Wow.
All right, see ya. All right.
That's yours, please. Thank you all. That's easy. Appreciate it. All right, take care.
Yeah.
Good. Jeff Lonta.
Oh, great. Nice to meet you. What we've seen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we're working with Nolan on the end.
Okay, yeah. Yep. He's
He's
been,
been managed these two folks. And we're supporting the architect.
well, when Stevens was at space, my wife was, she was the Stevens principal at that time.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. So she's missing out on all the fun. But, yeah. Yeah.
No, this is the report to go through all of this.
It actually changed the everything direction.
This open, it really does open heart about
Good.
All right, well, great.
Yeah.
Mom was hopefully. Seriously, somebody said, you know what, I need this by tomorrow morning, so mom will come over. And let's go outside and walk. Yeah.
And you can walk
Have we not all been there?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, you can share more than that.
So good.
Yeah, we have a slide there, how do I like to?
3D model tomorrow. No, my favorite story. Oh, so my old Scotland had a while ago, I'm on.
We made a last minute change last night, that was one of the best stuff.
Who's dad? I don't know if y'all know this. Big time electrician. I'm like, why am I celebrating coffee? Come to. Okay, they've got all this stuff. They have amazing.
Not to exceed that. That's a while. To make, see that like.
The termination of this
I would say for the inspection service.
Have you met Toby before? Michael did. That's a whole process. Michael, sorry to interrupt. I'm Thomas. Steve, good to meet you. Yeah. Hi, I'm Sean. Sean, nice to meet you. Hi, good morning. Hello. Michael. Hi. Oh, very good.
All right, are we ready? No, we're not ready. Yeah.
Good morning. Toby. You met Toby.
Maybe not. Just kind of keep my head down on Pacific for highway.
Oh, okay. One.
We gotta figure it out.
Always frustrating when tech doesn't.
All right.
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm going to introduce, I'm sorry, I got distracted. This is our Superintendent Michelle Olson, and she will get us started.
Good morning, thank you for being here. We're excited to hear your presentation this morning. And Nolan Deuce, who's our Capital Projects Director, he's going to facilitate our time today.
So good morning. We have two firms presented to the board when we make the final selection. They have about 45 minutes to answer the questions we gave them. The board will have 15 minutes after that to ask follow-up questions. As one group leaves, and they are the last presentation, so as one group leaves, we'll give the next group a few minutes to set up. After both groups have presented, we'll have public comment. Robin Brown and Toby Maggie, our senior project directors, are with us today. I'd like to hear some positives they've taken from the presentation. At that time, I'll give a quick overview of what I saw. The board should have a discussion on what they saw, moving from a ranking of architects. Both can do the work after discussing with the district's attorney. What we need today is to rank up first and second. After the board has come to a majority, I would like each board member to state their order. And the next step is negotiate a contract with the selected firm.
All right, thank you, and good morning. Thank you for having us here today, and for giving us this opportunity to share with you a bit more about the City Architects, as well as to give you some insight into what it would be like to work with us over the next 4 years to bring this project to life. The City Architects has designed a lot of schools over the years. I'd say we kind of specialize in high school design, in particular big, complicated, comprehensive high school projects, including a lot of projects that are on occupied sites that have phased components and that are partnerships with our GCCM partners. We also are currently working on a number of projects in North Kitsap School District, as well as a couple smaller projects in Jefferson County. So we're not afraid of the road, and we are absolutely committed to being here physically as needed in order to make this project a success. My name is Jordan Keel. I'm the managing principal of the team. My role on the team as managing principal is one of oversight. I want to make sure that our project is meeting the milestones and the budget expectations of the project. I want to make sure the project is staffed appropriately and that our staff is functioning. It's a high functioning team and it's collaborative with you and with our GCCM partner. And critically, I want to oversee the drawings and make sure that we're following our own quality control standards. Because at the end of the day, I will be the one putting my stamp on the drawings as the architect of record. Michael?
Good morning. I'm Michael Davis, and I'm the proposed design principal for the project. As design principal, my role has 3 key aspects. First, I'll lead the programming and visioning phase of the project. Second, I'll lead the design team to ensure our project meets your goals and your expectations. And finally, third, I'll actually lead the budget management process on the project to ensure we're not only meeting our budget, it's that we're delivering the most for you and the Port Angeles community. And that's really what's important to us. Limiting risk and delivering the most. My approach to design is about articulating your vision. And what I really love about Pacetti is that none of our projects look the same. Each of them embodies the community, staff, and students that we work with, and aren't influenced by outside distractions such as fancy design awards or the new flavor of the month in the architectural design. I bring the experience of 8 different high school projects. I worked in 5 occupied sites during construction, worked on 60 school theater projects, and I've done over 40 school master plans. I also come from a family of educators and administrators at high schools, and so I always bring that unique perspective when I work on a school project. When I look at Port Angeles, I feel a lot of connection to where I grew up in Olympia, Washington. We're a little bit bigger, we're the southeastern side of the Olympics, but there's really a lot of similarities. Log yard on the waterfront, beautiful deciduous forest as our backdrop, nice connection, great connection, collaboration with local indigenous tribes. You guys have frugal burgers, we have Eaton's burgers. I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with you, and I want to tell you I'm dedicated to this project from the start all the way through to finish construction.
Good morning. I'm Kim Young, and the words collaboration, communication, and teamwork are my guiding principles to deliver a project that reflects your community, your vision, within your standard schedule and budget. I'm your dedicated go-to contact as project manager from day one for project completion and beyond, and I serve as the team's choreographer, cheerleader, and cat herder. I love the challenge of a complex high school project, and with a background in costume design, I especially am excited about the auditorium renovation. So I can't wait to bring my passion for great educational spaces and performing arts to your project.
Good morning, I'm Christian Kaczynski. I'm the project architect on this team. And I have been a lifelong avid backpacker and hiker, and so I really enjoyed visiting Port Angeles over the decades, bringing my kids here to explore the national park and the beauty around here. My other big passion is designing buildings that do good. It's really important to me that our buildings use our natural resources wisely, that they connect us to the nature and to the place where they are, and that they provide a safe and supportive environment for our kids. On this project, my role is threefold. So I would be leading the development of the educational specifications in the program, and then working with Mike to help support him in the development of the design for the project. And then most importantly, I'll lead the technical development of the documentation for the project. So we'll have a large team of architects and engineers working on this project, and it's my responsibility to make sure that we're delivering construction documents that are clear, concise, coordinated, code compliant, and easily constructible and cost effective at the same time.
So the four of us you see here today are dedicated to this project from start to finish. And this is a large project, and as the phases progress, we've built the team out, and it gets larger and larger as we move through the construction documents ultimately. These are the folks back at the office that we've identified for the project. It's important to us that we staff our projects in consistent ways. We don't want to have a revolving door on any given project team. These are the folks that we plan to commit to this project as they join the team. They all have great high school experience, very familiar with working in high school programs, which are very often varied, complicated programs, so it's an important experience. And they're also really strong technically, so I have great confidence they'll be able to produce a really well-coordinated document set that mitigates schedule and budget risk during construction. In addition to this SETI team, we have put together a big consultant team to support the project as well. These are all folks that we have successful past experience working with. We know that they understand what it means to work on a school that's an occupied site. They have theater experience, and most importantly, they've got that collaborative mindset that we want when we think about putting together a team to engage with the GCCM contractor. So anyway, enough talking about us. We want to get into talking about your project, so let's get into that.
It's really difficult to overstate the importance of a really well put together set of educational specifications for a project, particularly a large, complex project like a high school. Over the lifetime of the project, there are countless decisions that have to be made and a lot of competing priorities that all have to come together. And having a document that serves as a roadmap for the team and for you as the owners is critical to help us make those decisions and carry us all the way through the process. So our goal is for the educational specifications to capture the district's vision, to reflect your culture and values, as well as the facility needs. It really sets the programmatic priorities for the project so that when we have to make weighted decisions, we've got a place to start from. And then it really helps guide the overall scope of the project, the size of the building, and ultimately is an instrument for controlling the budget on the project as well. At the SETI, we have a long history of putting together and a reputation for putting together really well crafted and thorough educational specification documents, and so we're eager to bring that experience to Port Angeles. Our process for this starts with a lot of listening and information gathering. So our goal is to really reach out to a broad spectrum of people to have input in it. And so there's three elements of that process. We want it to be a structured process so that we are facilitating those conversations with different stakeholders, and that we have a clear decision-making pathway for it. We also want the process to be inclusive, so we want to make sure that we're reaching out to all of the different stakeholders that are influenced by the project. So that involves talking with educators and staff at the school who we can understand their educational pedagogies and their teaching approaches and what their priorities are for the spaces. We want to reach out to students and get their perspective as the occupants for the building and the ones who are benefiting the most from the building. And we want to reach out to the community groups that are involved as well, that are providing support to the school, that are using the spaces on campus, and are involved in the project. And then finally, talking with district staff. So making sure that we're taking into account the needs of the people who are going to be taking care of this building, so we can set it up to be durable and easily maintained over the long term. And finally, we want the process to be interactive. So as we're gathering those ideas, we want to be testing out different ideas and concepts and bringing those back for an iterative process where we're really honing in on a concise, clear direction for it. One of the examples and stories I wanted to tell was about Highline High School, where we worked on the programming for that. And at the beginning of that project, the understanding was that there is a district-owned performing arts center that is literally next door to the high school there. And the understanding was that that was going to be the theater and performance space for the high school classes and for school events. As we worked through the process and we were talking with the various stakeholders, the teachers and the community members, what we found was that the Performing Arts Center was actually so heavily used by the community already that there wasn't time in the schedule for the high school classes to actually make use of that building. And there wasn't time to hold school events there. And so we brought that feedback back to the district and we revised the program for the building to include a new theater and performing space for the high school on the campus. And we were able to do that within the constraints of the size and budget for the project, and we just through a shifting of priorities. But it's a great example of listening to the stakeholders in the process and making some changes in the approach in response to that.
Another programming example is that Aviation High School. It's a very tight budget and a very tight site. It's a museum of flights campus, a very industrial area, and it's a pretty small parcel of land. But because of the unique program, we were able to combine the functions of the student commons, the lecture hall, and the gym that they wanted. And what we ended up with was this heart of the school. It was a really dynamic space that gets used a lot and is well beloved by the students. The commons is on the second floor. It actually looks over the Museum of Flight's jets that they have parked there. So it's nice to be elevated so you're not looking at a bunch of landing gear. And then the seats deploy and create a lecture hall setting. They have a lot of guest lecturers come in from industry and speak to the students. And then a big part of the program is actually the students presenting in a large format. So that's a really critical part of their program. And then when the seats are retracted, we have this space in the center that we call the gym. It's really not a full-size gym, but it's a great space for robotics competitions and to run off a little steam at lunchtime. This is a very tailored solution. This is definitely not right for a large comprehensive high school. It's very specific to this program. But it's an example of how we dive deep into the program, make sure we really understand it, and look for these opportunities where we can deliver more for less.
So I learned a new word while preparing for today's presentation, and it's called co-opetition, which means collaborating with your competitor. So the project on the screen is Evergreen High School. We're currently closing that out, working with Highline Public Schools, and they also designed and constructed a second high school along with the same schedule. So we have a lot of opportunities to work with that team, sharing ideas and working through common issues while maintaining two distinct design solutions. We see a real opportunity for collaboration with the elementary school in relation to technical standards. Some of the things we did with the Highline projects is that we ran joint meetings with facility staff. That not only saved time for staff, but it also made sure that both teams were getting the same feedback. We also had joint meetings to talk about similar program areas and bigger overarching ideas like safety and security. You know, everything from how visitors enter the building to how to what roller shade fabric that we specify. And then finally, we found a lot of opportunities for teamwork during construction where the district wanted alignment between the two projects. So we think all of these would apply between the high school and elementary projects, and we'll probably find other areas we can collaborate as well, and we're more than happy to do so.
You asked us to address how we could honor the tribe's connection to the land in shaping our educational specifications. And I wanted to start by first acknowledging that we do stand on the lands of the Lower Hollow people who've been here for time immemorial as stewards and residents of the area. In preparation for this interview, we did make an attempt to reach out to the tribe. And one of the things that they made us aware of was the memo of understanding that exists between the tribe and the district. We already started to do some research into your syllabus and your course offerings on campus and noted some of the unique things about Port Angeles High School, such as the really robust performing arts and music programs and the wide variety of career and technical programs that are offered. But in particular, we saw the Klallam language classes and the Native American studies that were offered. And getting a hold of the MOU really helped provide some context and history and detail around that partnership between the district and tribe. And so we really see a lot of opportunities to use that as a framework for developing the educational specifications in terms of providing spaces that support the programs outlined in the MOU. We also, when we did the tour on campus, we saw the community garden that's there, and our understanding is that that was a partnership between the tribe and the school. And so we also see a lot of opportunities with developing the ed specs to provide outdoor spaces that tie into the programmatic offerings at the high school. We're currently working on some improvements down in Skokomish on the Hood Canal School. And there, similarly, the school has a partnership with the Skokomish tribe. And one of the classes that they're teaching is a class that teaches the kids about the native plants in the area, helps them to identify them, and learn about which ones are edible and which ones have medicinal uses, and things like that. And so one of the ways that we were able to help support that program was that we had our landscape architect meet with the instructor for that class, and then incorporate some of those native plants that are part of her curriculum into the landscape design for the school, so that we're actually planting them on campus and making them available. There's some other additional exciting things that we're finding ways to partner with the tribe on for this project. We have talked with the Skokomish about finding opportunities for using tribal art and crafts in the building, and so we've given them a document that identifies some of those areas, and we're looking to issue a request for proposal so that we can incorporate some of that into the building. One of the exciting ideas that we've heard already is an idea about having a series of 9 canoes set into the landscape as part of the approach to the project, so which would represent the original 9 tribes of the Tawana people that the Skokomish were a part of. And then for the columns that you see in the new entryway to the school, we're looking to use some trees harvested from the tribe's forest lands for those, because we see that as a way of not only incorporating some natural local materials into the project, but also the economic benefit of it, where we're actually purchasing resources directly from the tribe in that way. So there's a lot of exciting opportunities that we see with that project. The other way that we can really honor the commitment to stewardship that the people of the Salish Sea area all are known for is to demonstrate a commitment to stewardship on the project at Port Angeles High School. So at Pacetti, we often incorporate a lot of sustainable design strategies into our projects, including really excellent daylight into our classroom and instructional spaces, energy efficiency, a focus on salmon safe stormwater design, so that we're making sure that the water that comes off of our sites is not negatively impacting the waterways and the ecosystems that our communities rely on. At the Support Services Center in Federal Way, one of the strategies that we used was we collected the rainwater coming off the roof into cisterns, which you can see one of them here on the left. And then that rainwater was used to wash the buses. There's an automatic bus wash there on the site because it's part of their bus maintenance facility. But using the rainwater to wash the buses saves nearly $1 million of water for the district per year. And then the overflow from coming off of the roofs runs through a constructed stream that is there on site, which is, functionally, filtering that water and serving as part of our stormwater management, but it's also telling the story of water on the site because it directly connects into the Hylabos Creek watershed, which is the local water system there and is in a really environmentally sensitive area. So really finding ways to connect those functional aspects of the project with a sense of place and the connection to the larger ecosystems. For this project, the district set a target of LEED Gold certification for it, and we were able to achieve that, despite the fact that the budget for the project was quite constrained. And so we see that as a really successful example of how the district could demonstrate to the community that they had a commitment to stewardship and were able to do it within a constrained budget.
Managing a tight budget on any project starts at day one and continues all the way through the design process. We start off by meeting with you and your team to get an understanding of your preferred systems and material selections, and use that to build a cost model to understand what dials we can turn and where there may be wiggle room within the different systems of the building. We then use that information to dive a little deeper and get site specific. We look at things such as site topography, we look at existing utilities, we study building form, organization, building efficiency, the things that are going to drive dollars on your project. And we really assess this to make sure we're making the right decisions early on in the process. We had a really good story here. We had a great opportunity working on the new Issaquah Plateau High School, where we worked really closely with our contractor partner in early concept design to study 7 different solutions, the same program, the same site, the same technical standards, and really try to establish what were those early cost drivers. What you're seeing on screen is an example of 3 of those 7 studies. And what's important to note here is those are all the same school, all the same program, same technical standards, same site. There's a $21 million difference between each of those projects. And so we don't know how that would meet obviously your goals, but establishing really good budget management early on can allow us to deliver more later in the project. You can buy a lot for $21 million. As we go deeper in the design process, we get really more detailed. We look at cut and fill analysis, how much trucking of soil, of grain soil on site. We look at how we add new utilities. We look at hardscape and landscape. We get really real and specific with the project. A really good example of this is at Fairview Middle School in the Central Kitsap School District in the Bremerton area. Here, the Fairview Middle School was a phase occupied site during construction. And what we did was actually make a really compact building that cradled to a couple of existing structures on the site so we could be really efficient and deliver more program. The school also worked with the existing topography rather than working against it, and stepped down the hill to make nice connections to the outdoors, but also maintaining the costs that will affect school program, not necessarily dealing with moving a bunch of earth on site and flattening it out. We also were really cognizant of the existing native landscape and trees and realized there's a lot of beauty and already investment there. And so we maintained a lot of that landscaping so we, one, didn't have to buy new, but also we could honor what was already there. Finally, we did a lot of in-depth analysis on their existing music room and their gym spaces and found we could actually modernize these environments to be really successful 21st century learning spaces at a fraction of the cost of new construction. And so we modernized them, tied them into our building, and actually took exterior walls and made them interior spaces. And what that did was allow us to be really efficient with circulation. So we're not spending a lot of extra money on circulating around buildings or making corridors to connect to buildings, but also solved a lot of supervision challenges on the site. So it was kind of a twofer, We didn't spend a lot of extra money on spaces that had a lot of existing value, and we solved some of the design problems they already had. Another good example of really working within the tight budget is our Roosevelt High School project in Portland, Oregon. Roosevelt was a campus of 7 different structures, all at different elevation points, different entry points, supervision nightmare. And what we did was we started off doing a heavy analysis of each of the 7 buildings. And what that told us was 2 of the 7 actually held a lot of value and could be upgraded into modern learning environments at a low cost. And so we designed around those buildings and actually connected the whole campus with new construction to make one school, one front entry, and utilize those, I would say, dated outdoor courtyard spaces that are hard to supervise as interior spaces. And so there's really a lot of wins from a budget standpoint here. Again, not spending excess money on extensive circulation, but we were actually able to take the exterior walls of this historic facade and the historic windows, bring them inside the space. So we're not having to buy new wall systems or update the window and wall systems to energy code, because energy code now requires us to do that. And so we saved a lot of money by doing this simple approach on leaving existing windows and brick in place and really let that historic fabric be our finishes on the interior. Another win here was when we started looking at the demolition of the 5 buildings that remained on the site and looking at our project budget, we really had a limited budget for project finishes, fancy wood finishes, and things that I would say sometimes are nice to have some projects. So we actually went through those buildings and found really cool pieces of just elements within them and brought them to the new campus. So the old theater seat backs, we actually incorporated as wall finishes and light fixtures within our Performing Arts Center. We took the beautiful old wood bleachers, I mean, these bleachers were gorgeous, 80-year-old wood, and actually made wall finishes, ceiling finishes, seats. We wrapped them in casework, and we even took the center court circle from the original gym and made that kind of a primary element within our lobby. So what this allowed us to do was several things. We saved a lot of money in buying new wood finishes and finishes for the wall. It respected the history, so gave a sense of the past in this new building, but also let us design something within a tight budget that we really didn't expect to happen within the project.
So you asked us to talk about how we can successfully deliver a project by June 2029. And the best way I know to do that is with great communication and really with an emphasis on listening. So early on, we'll have a discovery period where we get to know each other and we learn about your community's vision, their hopes and their dreams, and their concerns. Design is an iterative, collaborative process, and a schedule is no different. So Jordan and I will work closely with you to build the schedule, identify the critical paths, things like permitting timelines to deliver by 2029. So while that discovery process is going on and we're developing the ed specs, we'll also be working a little bit behind the scenes to prepare for design and construction. So we'll start with that schedule and we'll do it with a pole planning session. We'll gather in a big room with your stakeholders, key consultants, and our GCCM partner. We'll have colorful Post-its and lots of snacks. We'll make it fun, and we'll test out different schedule scenarios. With pole planning, you start with the end date of June 2029, and then you work your way backwards, identifying key milestones and critical paths. We will also outline the who, what, when, where, why, and how of communication amongst our teams. And we'll talk about the decision-making process. We know that that can be overwhelming sometimes for owners, and we'll share our tools to help streamline the process, making sure we're asking questions of the right people, we're clearly asking the questions, and we're documenting all the decisions. We can assist with the PRC application for GCCM approval, and we can also help with the GCCM selection process itself. And last but not least, we'll start researching the permitting process with the City of Port Angeles and start preparing a pre-application submittal as early as possible. So early engagement with the city is critical. And in fact, we've already started making some phone calls to them just to get an idea of what the permitting process looks like and also what the timelines are and how that fits into our schedule. The good news was it sounds like it's a pretty streamlined process. There's one permit that covers all departments. And the best thing was that when I called them, nobody said, we are understaffed and behind schedule. I don't know if that's true, but nobody said it, and most other jurisdictions do these days. So that was refreshing. We're finding that stormwater can really be a lengthy review and can hold up a permit that's otherwise ready to issue. So I specifically reached out to a stormwater reviewer, and the timelines he gave me were very encouraging, and of course we'll add buffers to that because we know things always take longer than we think, but they'll fit in nicely with the schedule. And the interesting thing he said was that it's really the smaller projects that homeowners bring in that take longer to review, and the larger engineered stormwater projects go more smoothly. So it's part of a recurring theme that I'm gonna keep saying this morning. It's really about teamwork, and we look at jurisdictions as our partners. We can't build without them. So we have a long track record of building really good relationships with our jurisdictions and getting those permits issued. So we know this is a phased project, and we know the big vision is it's a two-phase project, but there could also be some sub-phases potentially. And one of the things we want to look at is what the programming priorities are and how those impact staff and students. So we'll talk about that early on, and we want to understand if there's going to be a need for interim spaces, if what spaces can easily be replicated and which ones can't, and are there opportunities for temporary spaces within district properties or within the community? So these are some of the questions we asked at West Sound Technical Skills Center. It's a high school level skills center in Bremerton, and it's under construction right now. It's multiple phases. It's part new construction, part renovation, a lot of equipment heavy programs. And so some of the things we did at this project was to reach out to the community for programs like culinary. And we also added some extra infrastructure into non-shop spaces so that we could move some temporary equipment into those spaces. And then right now we're talking about the possibility of erecting some pole barns because they're gonna need some extra space. They don't need to be fully enclosed like a classroom space, and they just need to be protected from the weather. So those may or may not apply to your project, but it's the kind of things we'll want to talk about and identify specific to your program needs. So this is the schedule that we included in our statement of qualifications, so we may have already seen this. And we think this is a very doable schedule. It works, it leaves adequate time for design, and it has a 21-month construction schedule. But as we were looking at it and talking about this project more and more, we understand that it's a phased occupied site. There's a lot of complexities. We want to give some more time for construction. At the same time, we don't want to shortchange design because we need to make sure that our construction documents are complete because that's going to make construction go smoother. So we wanted to, it's a great opportunity or a great reason for bringing in your GCCM very early so we can work through those schedule ideas with them. But in the meantime, we reached out to a couple of our GCCM partners just to get their input. And they brought up a couple of really good points about phased construction. One is that we need to remember we need to allow time for turnover at each phase. And we need to think about when that turnover phase happens relative to the overall school calendar. And then finally, we need to talk to the city about what their requirements are going to be to get a temporary certificate of occupancy at each phase. So with all of that in mind, we just took a look at a different approach to the schedule. It's a two-bid package approach. And what it did was it gave us more time for construction, added on about 4 to 5 extra months. So in this particular approach, programming and schematic design look very much like the other schedule. But then in design development, we break up into 2 bid packages. And Mike is going to talk about a potential phased project a little bit more, so it's kind of based on that. So it assumed 3 phases. And phase 1 would be bid package 1, and bid package 2 would be phase 2 and 3. The idea is that phase 1 is a smaller scope of work, so we can accelerate the documents and get out to bid more quickly, and then start construction. While phase 1 construction is going on, we can be completing the bid package 2 documents, go out to bid, and then be ready to start construction as soon as phase 1 is complete. So this is just one approach. There's a lot of ways we can look at this. Again, working with our GCCM partner will be really beneficial, and those poll planning sessions are great ways to test out different strategies. So finally, this photo is your goal. Having that really great grand opening celebration with your community, welcoming the students and staff into your new building. So we can achieve this with, again, my guiding principles I mentioned at the beginning, communication, collaboration, and teamwork, and using creativity to enhance efficiencies and to mitigate risks, and we can deliver in June of 2029.
So when you design a school on an occupied site, there are 4 key areas that need special attention. First and foremost, staff and student safety. We need to provide safe egress pathways. We need to limit unsupervisable areas. We need to plan for emergency access and gathering zones. Second, we need to be focused on site circulation. We need to plan for staff, student, and visitor parking that could change throughout the process. We need to create multiple access points to our site. We need to maintain bus pickup and drop off and access to our site, as well as make sure we have loading access and maintenance access during construction, so they can provide the services we need to our buildings. The third area is construction planning. We need to create clearly defined construction zones and construction access areas. We need to maintain our mechanical and electrical services that come into the site, so as you potentially take down a building or build a building, all your other buildings can stay online safely. And finally, we need to account for mitigating stormwater and construction runoff, because it's really important as we build this building to respecting and treating the natural environment as much as possible. And finally, fourth, we need to put an emphasis on teaching and learning. We need to be aware and create visual and acoustical barriers where construction may get close to teaching environments. We need to make sure all of our phasing accounts for the programmatic pieces and for the capacity within the building. And finally, we need to look for opportunity to engage kids. That's one of the wins when you have an occupied site during construction, is you can engage students in the construction process as a teaching and learning opportunity. As we look to approaches of future expansion or future phases of the building, there's several key things to keep in mind. We need to make sure our early decision-making in your first project, like what's going to happen now, is taking that into account, because we want to set up a building for the future to be a 100-year building and make sure we're not creating, I would say, a disconnected learning environment. We need to make sure where these additions take place has adequate construction access and construction zone. You can't do an addition on a corner of a site where a contractor can't get in and operate. And then we need to make sure that these additions aren't hindering our supervision of spaces. So where you add on the building, you can't create, I would say, a challenging environment for the staff within the school. We treat infrastructure planning, future planning in a very similar way. We build out our electrical room with extra capacity and to handle loads. So when you think of building 500 and 800 with the heavy CTE buildings, we want to make sure we're accommodating those loads within our electrical room. Similarly, we need to build out our boiler room and central plant to handle expansion. And then we need to provide pathways for things like data and communication cable, hydronics, plumbing, and future duct runs, so we're not undoing things when we're adding onto the building. Additionally, we need to respect our investment now. So when we look at a future phase, it can't waste the funds and the community investment into your building. So that's why it's important to start early on in design and carry it all the way through construction. We thought it'd be a really good example to show you kind of our early design process and the depth of things we think about during this early concept planning like we did at Issaquah. So some of the first impressions we had of your site were the immense amount of grade change you have from your southwest to northeast corner. I think it's just around 100 feet from our research. Other things we noticed, and this is obviously obvious to you guys, but you have a ton of buildings, you have a lot of different circulation pathways, there's some ADA challenges throughout the site, and there's supervision challenges. And so when we start having initial ideas and understanding that this isn't the right design solution, we haven't engaged with you guys, but we thought it'd be pretty incredible to create a single building that connects the lobby of the gym to the lobby of the auditorium. So we have a connected campus that had an interior ADA accessible pathway, a 3-story elevator that connected both of those buildings, and created really a central heart to your campus and one front door. And so the idea that we tested was 3 phases. The first phase, I'm just gonna take this with me. The first phase would look at building a bus drop-off zone on the western portion of your site, and then providing an accessible pathway to your gym lobby. We'd then work with you guys in your public utility district to assess the electrical service coming in from Peabody Street and create some temporary poles and electrical services to maintain all your buildings on site while building a new structure that would be the permanent mechanical electrical hub of your building and we could have a permanent underground solution rather than guide wires coming in off of Peabody Street. Phase 1 would look at building a 2-story structure, the upper level aligning with generally aligning with the main level of the gym lobby. It would accommodate about 32 classrooms and lab spaces, a new library, some administration space, a commons and kitchen, and then that central utility hub I mentioned a second ago. What this would allow us to do is demolish building 900 and allow us to move kids into the first phase, and then demolish building 900 and 400, which would allow us to expand our construction area to the north. We then build phase 2, which would be a 3-story structure that would extend the commons, so extending that heart to your campus. It would accommodate another 25 classroom and lab spaces. It would have some CTE spaces, and would also provide the music rooms that are currently in building 200. So what that would allow us to do is actually take all the capacity within your portables, building 100, 200, 300, and 600, and move all of our kids into this new structure and allow us to demo the remaining buildings on site. So that would set us up for phase 3, which would allow us to move our construction zone further to the north for our final phase. That final phase would focus on the modernization of your Performing Arts Center. It would build out the proper back-of-house spaces for performing arts that you currently don't have. We had an idea of adding a black box space that could be another performing arts space, because when we reviewed your syllabus, it seems like you had a lot of programs from music and drama, and it seems that there may be, I would say, not enough teaching station for those programs. So we had the idea of a flexible black box that could add additional capacity to your performing arts. It would also create one point of entry, a main front door with a central admin and counseling hub, so you have adult eyes on that main entry and a clear sense of entry to your school. So it would be one structure that connects from your gym to your auditorium. It would step down the hill and work with the grades, so we're not spending a lot of money on regrading stuff, and solve some of the solve some of the things that we noticed when we first visited your site. Is this the right solution? Absolutely not. This is us testing an idea of how we thought we could solve some of the things and make one safe, connected campus, and then set up for the future, for a future potential addition to the west here or to the east here to accommodate building 500 and 800 CTE programs. And then once that future phase is completed, we have one school, we have an interior accessible connection spanning from our gym all the way to the auditorium. So just an idea. But I wanted to illustrate the things we look at when we study early on in concept design.
All right, let's talk about the program. So we did some okay, 4 minutes ago. We have to go quickly. We understand the acoustics of the auditorium are world class, and we've got to preserve them for sure. You asked us to talk about how we deal with acoustics and structural challenges on a tight budget. The great news is the acoustics are great, right? So what we want to do is preserve that volume, preserve those finishes, the things that create that acoustic environment we want to save. Behind those things are the structure. So we met with our structural engineer and we looked at the existing structural drawings, and we learned that your walls are reinforced concrete masonry units with a veneer on top of that. So we're going to want to double check that reinforcement is actually in those walls. A lot of buildings of this vintage reinforcement maybe show up on site that day. So we want to check that, and we also want to pin that veneer back to the structural wall. Both of those interventions are things that we can do from the exterior, we don't anticipate them impacting the interior. The other big structural thing we want to take a look at is those trusses. We want to make sure that as we are thinking about modern catwalks, insulation requirements, HVAC requirements, that we're not adding too much load to those trusses so that we don't end up triggering an expensive upgrade that could be kind of invasive. Good news is we're not too worried about that. We've got lots of strategies around that. It's just something we're going to want to track as we move forward. The other thing I want to mention is accessibility in the auditorium. Right now, all your accessible seats are at the front, and modern accessibility would ask us to distribute those ADA seats a little bit more throughout the house. PLA, our theater consultant, recently addressed a very similar theater at Richland. It's very similar to what you have presently with this continental seating. And what they ended up doing was adding some aisles, including a cross aisle. And what this allows us to do is get ADA seating distributed. It's easier for patrons to get in and out of their seats in mid-show if they need to bathroom or something, but also critically, it adds a location at the cross aisle that's in the center of the house where we can have our sound booth, which is really where you want your sound tech to be for the functioning of the theater. Not sure that these are exactly the solutions we need to land on for your auditorium, but we're pretty confident that we can solve all of these problems while maintaining your seat count, which we know is also really important too.
So,
Yeah, we're going to skip our one example.
I just wanted to show you a theater where we did a similar upgrade, but we'll try it.
2 minutes, all right, so I'm going to talk about our GCCM experience for 2 minutes. We've done quite a few projects with GCCM partners. There's 4 big things we're looking for out of our GCCM partner. We want their help with the budget management side. We want to make sure we're designing to budget and we're not cutting to budget. We want them to think innovatively about the design with us. We want them to help us think through the sequencing and phasing to make sure that we're keeping students safe, but also to see how efficiently we can deliver the project. Because the faster we can build it, the more money we can sink into the program for students. And then we also want their help with early procurement. COVID created a lot of long lead items for key infrastructure for buildings, and we need to get in line early often to acquire certain parts of the buildings. We need their help with that. At Lincoln High School, we had a GCCM that helped us with an innovative solution where we ended up stacking mechanical units in a framework that was sort of similar to what you would do in a heavy industrial building, which was their other project that they worked on. This helped us shorten our duct runs, reduce our duct sizes so that we could thread them through the building more easily, which reduced first costs, but it also eliminated the need for shafts in the building. And every shaft ends up having fire and smoke dampers, which are a constant point of maintenance. So it had great benefits in terms of first cost, as well as good benefit for long-term maintainability of the structure. So these are the kinds of things we're looking for out of our GCCM partners. You want to speak through the next?
Yeah, I think we had an example of just working with our GCCM partner to condense phasing on a project, which is a significant amount of time and money for it. So having them involved in the process early on is a really critical factor for these complex projects.
And that's okay. Excellent.
Okay, so we're switching into questions. Okay, anybody have a burning question?
I want to talk about bathrooms.
All right. That was a thing I skipped over in the auditorium section.
I really, bathrooms are a huge problem in our high school right now. And not only with the students, but then the auditorium only has not enough room. Yeah. And the lines get long during the symphonies and that kind of stuff. So could you talk a little bit first about student bathrooms?
Absolutely.
The problems that we engage in student bathrooms.
More than I've ever thought I could. Supervision in bathrooms is a thing, as you're alluding to, and we have kind of looked at the range of possibilities. So on the far end are some bathrooms we've done for some districts where it's universal, right? We end up creating, every toilet has a fairly minimal, we want to keep it as small as possible because you don't want to party in there, but minimal little bathroom rooms with full height doors. There's some things to think about in that scenario. You want to think about a student in crisis. You want to make sure a door swings out and not in so somebody can't accidentally trap themselves within a space. You want doors to rest slightly ajar. You want an indicator of whether or not there's somebody in there so a teacher can quickly see which stalls are occupied. So often we do like a frosted transom light above the door. It does add some cost. There's more ventilation requirements. There's you need a fire strobe in each stall. So there's some of those added things. We've done a number of stakeholder engagement exercises with students around this, and usually their concerns have kind of nothing to do with that aspect of it. It's usually about them having to touch a doorknob between them and the sink, which you have to do in any bathroom, right? We want to also make sure that then the sink areas are open, they're supervisable. We don't want dead ends as well, so that's a big one. It does actually shape how you organize your bathrooms a bit. And then we also recognize that there are legitimate needs to actually have some privacy for those sort of washing and grooming aspect of bathroom use. And so usually those facilities are coupled with some private full bathrooms that are ADA bathrooms as well. We recognize that's not for everybody, and there's other, other things we can do kind of in between. I think, particularly when we think about locker rooms, we've done some where they still remain gendered, but we have separate changing rooms that don't have a toilet in them, because a lot of students are going to toilet stalls to change, and that's not sanitary. So I'm not sure if that totally answers your question, but we are definitely equipped to have that conversation and to share some past experiences.
To add one thing, it's about location and supervision. So we're not putting them outside a building for access, we're locating them in central hubs, so you get those passive supervision opportunities for staff. And when talking about the auditorium, we kind of did a program assessment, and that was clearly a need. And so in that idea of building out the proper support space for a program, as a lobby to the school, separate zone from the rest of school, so evening functions can take place, and allow that, I would say, additional 2 to 3 feet transition we would want to accommodate that into that main lobby. The other thing, like Jordan was mentioning, is we want to get that distributed, accessible access throughout the auditorium, but also provide, I would say, opportunities where somebody has to leave in the middle of a performance, not to walk across 70 seats, and could easily get to a room and easily egress out of there.
That's kind of a little add-on, but the one point that our theater consultant made about adding aisles that he really liked about it is that it adds end row seats, which are a lot easier for somebody with mobility issues to get in and out of. So there's folks that don't need the full ADA accommodation of an ADA seat, but at the same time kind of could use a little bit of a lift, right? And so having that cross aisle be able to get you to up and down aisles where somebody may be able to take 2 or 3 steps up and then slip into an end row seat, that's a real benefit to adding aisles to a theater.
So the school district and the community in Port Angeles are really tight. The community has supported us for the capital levy and now the capital bond. And we'd always like to be able to return small work packages to the bidding packages. Can you speak to what your community outreach is, please?
That was our last slide. That's perfect. Yeah, actually, this is, we do participate in this, but it is actually a little bit more of an ask of our GCCM partners. In truth, they're the ones in the driver's seat a little bit more about bid packaging, but we do participate in those conversations and get in there with them. The goal is to get out into the sub-community, meet the subcontractors, make sure we understand what their capacity is, what they like to do, what they're good at, what they aren't maybe interested in bidding on. And just make sure that the bid packaging the project is broken up into bite-sized pieces that fit the local subcontractors really well. Because at the end of the day, the GCCM bid process is still a low bid process for those bid packages. But if we can make them fit really well with the local sub-market, the local subs ought to have an advantage. They don't have to travel to get there, right? So we've seen some success on past projects with a really robust outreach program and really a tailored bid package approach.
Chiming on this too. I think the role that we can play in that process is, as we're designing the building, that we make sure that the systems and materials that we are selecting for the project are ones that the local community can participate in and provide, right? So we don't want to be, specifying something that has to come like all the way from Europe if we could source that locally. So that's where, working with our construction partner to help us identify the trades and the materials that are available locally will help us in developing the design for the project.
You mentioned earlier and described how you might partner with the elementary school that we have going on, but we also currently are in the middle of our Stevens Middle School project. Can you talk to me about how you would see your team using information or experience from our Stevens Middle School project as you would move forward with the high school?
Yeah, we would love to, it'd be great to have an opportunity to meet with the team and talk about their experience and any kind of standards that were established during that project and just things that came up with the community and with the district. And then, look at their drawings, study the drawings, the specs, just get an understanding of what decisions were made. And I think between the high school, the elementary, and then with the middle school team, I mean, we can all work together and, and even start documenting those standards and creating technical standards for you.
I spoke with a mechanical consultant on that project and learned that you're not very interested in hydronic systems and that you got packaged rooftop systems. A fairly modular approach actually lends itself well to a phased rollout, and we can kind of lean into that. But we would obviously want to sit with you guys and validate that, understand it, make sure that it's the right solution for this project, or it continues to be something that you guys want to pursue.
I think the third and last point to add to this is lessons learned. Learning from your middle construction, what's been successful, what are you have concerns with, but also understanding the programmatic element. CTE programs have pathways often, and so if you have pathways at that middle school level, we want to engage with them in those new CTE spaces and bring that lessons learned to the high school. Christian mentioned the MOU, and in the MOU with the tribe, you have programs in your elementary, middle, and high schools, and so there's an opportunity to learn from how your new space is supporting those programs and bring that to our project as well.
Anybody else have any? Oh, Kristen? Nope. No other questions? All right, no. Okay, so that gives you a couple minutes to do your.
Okay, well, thank you
Final
so much
thought.
for having us here today. So why Bizetti? Well, I think it comes down to two things. I think we absolutely have the expertise to do the job very well, but more importantly, it's our commitment to your vision. So on the expertise side, we definitely have a resume of high schools, and we definitely know our way around an occupied site and a phased project, and we're seasoned GCCM veterans, and I love that delivery method and the collaboration that comes with it. We're familiar with modernizing theaters and what goes into that, and we'll be able to help navigate that conversation with you all. But nothing we've shown you today is correct. None of these solutions or ideas are correct. And we know that to be true because they couldn't possibly be correct. We haven't talked to you yet. A successful project is one that's going to, at the end of the day, reflect your community, your culture, your priorities. And our job on this process is to help facilitate a robust dialogue to create a shared vision among all the stakeholders about how the facility will support programs today, how the facility will adapt to programs of the future, the ways that the school should reflect the community, and what the identity of the school itself really ought to be. What we bring to that conversation is our facilitation experience, as well as our experience with past schools, design ideas, creative thinking, inquisitive mind, good questions. We're going to challenge ideas, we're going to test ideas through design studies, and actively listen. So that we, at the end of the day, we've translated all of that into a school that serves your community for the next 100 years. I hope it's clear from what we've presented today that we're really excited about this project. And simply put, we'd be really honored to be selected to be your partner to help you realize your vision for Port Angeles High School.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, I appreciate it. I'm until, I guess it's.
I know.
Tell me how to step up
Good
What you're dressing.
Yeah.
That's my right.
Hotter than you can even
I was,
imagine.
you looked familiar, and I was
like.
yeah. That's a small world, right?
Yeah.
Love that. You know my oldest brother, that's hilarious.
What are y'all related or something?
We went to the same high school.
Oh, okay.
Oh, funny problem. So nice meeting you. Yeah, the video will be sure to.
Always good to see you.
Well, everyone's getting cleaned up. We're gonna take a 10-minute break and be back at 10:30 to start our discussions. So, we all can stay around.
Yeah, it's always.
I didn't get to come say hello to you. And
Hi.
say, how are you doing?
Good to see you, Robin Brown.
Right, oh, we sat right here
Yep,
doing
yep.
the whole thing.
Yep.
I have to tell you the Godfather, I say you're right out of Central Casting. Right?
Is that good?
It's great.
Okay.
I mean, don't you think? I can't be the only person.
I
who's
can't tell
told
from
you.
this, when I look out this way, I still think I'm, years old.
No,
younger.
but you come in with this presence, like, I got you. That's the presence you
Good,
get.
well, I'm glad you feel that way,
So-
that's important. That's the idea.
Well, you do it very well.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so, how did you know you?
Did this one, many times. Although it was much bigger and more public, even though, monster things. Probably.
No, that's good.
All right, I'll be right back.
Oh, sure. Fully expected, both would say, 92% of the same thing, and you can infer that, of course, this is part of your, of course, you want to improve.
Yeah, we moved in.
Let's try to come around, this is like the
September or 16 or 17, so it's creation of empty nesters, not ready yet.
two firms is really approached.
Yeah, I wasn't ready when our daughter left, and now after high school for me, I told Morgan to just go.
Some folks are thirsty for
She's like, yeah.
Shirley has a little.
Yeah.
Art deco.
I'm sure Julie's friend.
Oh, yeah.
It's a,
Her mother. She puts it in, she puts it in whatever purse she's carrying. So I'm the one that always connects it from purse to purse. And she thought she lost it. And I remembered we put it in because she bought this new purse and couldn't even get her.
oh, that's right.
And so I just hid it in her wallet. That was part of her purse. And she was looking for, she couldn't find it in her purse. And she was like, really upset. She's been carrying this for years. So I remembered, and I put it in. So like, one more thing. And it worked. And she was so, she's like, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I know, it's kind of fun. Yeah.
Not successful ones, twice. Successful ones.
That was his artist class.
So we call it, it's the borrowed.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Those girls, I mean, they're just awful.
Do you know how much they
They
are?
are. They're challenged. When I was in high school,
And here they
went in the
are.
bathroom, went to the bathroom and left.
No.
And it was the boys that were there.
I'll have to give you the answer.
Yeah, I'm sure they are, but the girls. It's nice. Thank you for being on.
So you never heard her do it? How are you?
Hi, have I met you?
Yesterday. Oh,
I thought, yeah.
Good to see you again. Yes, it has. Good to see you again.
First party, not to relocate, not to So,
That,
she's got 4 weeks.
so you can walk there.
Well, this is such a big project, you know, it's just,
Yeah.
I'm concerned about them.
Yeah, don't ask a question, I don't answer. So.
Oh, yeah, we all want to remind stuff while we're having a chat.
You're a better sport, and that's fine.
I don't think from any little like oscillating kind of thing. Yeah. Miss Sandy here needs a little something.
Yeah, sure, but just anything.
She just needs a little salt.
Sugar would be good.
Sugar, we need sugar. Surely somebody gets sugar.
That's what they get.
It's got it. It's got it.
Which I think is a terrible thing, but yes.
We always try to sell our
That demonstrates what
and then you know, there's his last semester.
Yes, and that's what it says, the sand,
And so,
Was that life church? Who needs life church? Huh? Somebody needs life church? What?
I said mine's up to date, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
so that I always, that way I can answer. I got you.
Okay, well, we still have 3 minutes, but we're all here, aren't we all here? Should we just, oh, we gotta shut the door. He's always got it.
I need a straight shot to the brain.
I have some iced tea.
I will see, I brought some. I gave him some caffeine, none of that was nothing good. Okay.
Okay. We started with the PCC yesterday, right? And now we went to Banner and Nolan. Okay, so welcome back. I really appreciate the PACC folks staying here. You're gonna be kind of our first presenters, if you wish. If you don't have anything to say, that's fine too, but if you have something to say, we do ask that you come to the lectern because of the microphone. So anybody, oh, really? Anybody have anything to say?
I'll wait.
Please.
that don't know me, I'm Kyle Zimmerman. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I've been actually on this side of the design world for a long time, so this is really nice to kind of be on the other side. I'll just kind of tell you my thoughts on how the presenters did and kind of my recommendation, but thoughts on how to move forward for you, especially when I'm talking about capital advisory kind of decision making. I look at risk as the big thing to watch out for. With both firms, I think they both did great. I don't think you can make a bad decision here. You have really two good plans in front of you. I'll start with Bassetti. Bassetti, I think, well, I know that they're a very, very smart firm. They use a lot of smart tools. Always, some of the stuff they showed on there is some of the latest software that they're using. And the fact that they came forward with some designs right off the bat, they're showing their process, which is good if you want to work through that process. And I thought their team showed that they work like designers, meaning that they want to come up with a lot of concepts very quickly, go through those concepts with you until you arrive at that decision. That's one way of working. I've worked on projects like that, and in certain ways that works great. I thought Integris really focused more on a collaborative process, which I think personally would work better in Port Angeles and for this school district itself. Why do I say that? It's mostly because you could tell that they've built some trust already with you on the middle school project. They came in kind of knowing everyone here, which is really helpful. And to me, again, on the risk side of things, it really helps to lower that risk. I think they've kind of used the middle school process to learn how to work here. And so I can see the high school process going a lot smoother in that regard. But again, it's tough because both could deliver an amazing high school. I just really loved how Integris focused on kind of these little tiny comments around, hey, this person that we talked to a while back, and they talked about going to the bond meeting. They talked about these little things where they're showing involvement in the community. And I think that's what's needed here. I think for this process to go smoothly, I look at that being much more collaborative than potentially what Bassetti could do. The other thing, they made a comment on having an office in town potentially. Hold them to that. Make sure you do that because that would really be a game changer for how that process goes. So yeah, you gotta write it down. Yeah, let me see if I have any notes there. But again, both were great presentations. I didn't see anything that was major red flags. I thought it was interesting that Bassetti brought an option to the table, but I get it. I've seen that before as well as a strategy. And then the other thing with Integris, I thought they did a great job of showing their depth in their bench, meaning that they had a structural engineer on their team. That's really key. They're not subbing that out to someone else. And they had their org chart showed a lot of different types of architects, not just we're going to be here designing with you. It was kind of a more holistic approach to a design process. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
And I think I'm going to head out because I have a design meeting in Seattle now.
But that was very helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
No, not
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Drive safely.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm Steve Methker, I'm on the PACC. Kyle and I didn't talk the whole time, but we came to very similar conclusions as we talked afterward. I thought with Bassetti, their presentation was maybe a little bit more polished and a little bit more fun because they had some cool ideas. And they have some incredibly creative minds and ideas around design. But I do love how they talked about the idea of reusing finishes and reusing walls where possible, and reuse of things that honor nostalgia, which is one of the most powerful human emotions. So I think any firm can do that. But I thought that was neat that they also had a lot of creative efficiency. I think they pride themselves on being creative with efficiency, with the HVAC stack and things like that. But I came to the same conclusion as Kyle. They're somewhat idea driven, one of the things that struck me was going through the failure of the high school bond in 2015, where I was chair of the PACE committee, so it was quite painful. One of the things we did with the design firm at that time was come up with ideas and then go to the community. And that was an absolute disaster. Not because they were bad ideas, they were wonderful ideas, and they were beautiful. But in every meeting I've been in about these things since, my cardinal rule is there shall be no concept that you bring to the meeting. There will be a thought bubble, and the community and the groups will inform the architects on what's going to happen, because then we feel the ownership. So I thought that was a little bit risky for them to have ideas, and I worry about that a little bit. I don't think that would, that they would let that be a disaster, but that really hit me. My conclusion about Integris was, A, I have to put aside my bias because I've been so impressed with them so far. So I tried very hard to do that. But what I found in these two presentations was, one presentation was this, one presentation, the key event was all of us standing around this table. And that's not just something they did in this presentation, that's something they demonstrated through the middle school project. And so while their presentation was probably a little bit less polished, I think there may have been a little more depth and wisdom in their approach, particularly in a small town like Port Angeles. So I was really struggling because of course, I love the idea of continuing with Integris, but I wanted to keep an open mind about this. But as I tried to crystallize which one made the most sense for who we are and how we operate, they've demonstrated that they've already got it figured out. The other thing was driving as deeply as possible into local contractors and driving as much business as possible into local contractors. Bassetti said we'll do our best to see how far we can go with that. Integris actually has a plan and a method for that, and to work with the GCCM folks and Banner in actually doing that. Some of that is in our commercial contractor has a great plan for that as well, and they help those meetings. But I feel like the process and the intent there is a lot deeper with Integris. So I felt like, well, I was really struggling with which one. When I crystallized my conclusions, I thought, yeah, I think Integris from a standpoint of me as a committee member.
Well, I was going to try to sneak out, but Director Methner forced me to stay here. I have little to add, I think, beyond what my previous colleagues said. My name is Sean Worthington, I'm also on the PACA. So I'll just give you my bullet points from what I took away from the presentations. It's difficult, like Steve said, to remove the bias from Integris because both he and I have worked with them on the Stevens Middle School project. And I do believe that there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained being familiar with an architecture firm who has worked with the district, knows the processes and procedures that are already in place. They are definitely a known commodity. They've been successful on Stevens Middle School project. And one of the most impressive things for me with Integris was their collaboration with the Elwha tribe. I'm sure all of you have seen the how they're going to do the layouts and the levels of the school and the drawings that they worked with Carmen Watson Charles on. Very impressive. Thought they did a great job with their collaboration with the local community. They also recognize and acknowledge the campus challenges of the high school directed to safety and security. And they also thought the best part of the presentation was actually around the auditorium. They spent a lot of time talking about that. Sam does a great job with his presentations, but like Steve, I felt their presentation overall, if I was just going to base on that, was a little bit discombobulated, maybe unorganized, and maybe a little bit of energy lacking and excitement. But their forte is not in giving presentations to boards, but the project itself. So, like Steve, I'm very impressed with Integris. I think they did a great job. Just not as good on the presentation. So, Bassetti, 55 high schools, 45 auditoriums, 60 occupied sites. I think there's little doubt that they have the necessary skills, abilities, and bandwidth to successfully complete a project like this. Good presentation, very fluid, well-spoken, organized. They did have similar approaches to ed specs, collaboration, and some tribal outreach in their presentation. But one thing that was sort of a turn-off for me was that 70 to 80% of presentation was not tailored to this school. It was boilerplate. They could have given that presentation to any high school project. I mean, there was nothing specific to this project until the very end. The same thing with their nice handout. I don't know if any of you looked at it closely, but the only thing individual to Port Angeles High School is the title. Everything else is just pictures of other projects they've done. To me, it just seemed like they give this presentation to every board and didn't really specialize it. I felt like Integris wanted it more, and just from my own personal bias, that's what I would recommend. So, thanks for the opportunity, and thank you, Director Mather, for making me stick around.
Appreciate it, I really do.
Yeah.
So, the banner, right, oh, Jeff, did you have, yeah, you're with the PSCC and you're the principal, did you have anything extra to add?
Do I have to come up there, or can I from here?
You're fine.
All right. Well, I'm
No,
fine.
yes, because I need
Sandy,
you on the mic.
you had my back, I appreciate it.
I can hear you.
Well, we can hear you.
I think it has to do with the microphone recording.
Well, and I apologize because I had to sneak out several times, which I imagine is going to be much like the next 4 years with whomever is chosen. I will be part of the process, but having to sneak out to take care of school stuff. Couple things stood out, and they've been mentioned already. In world, there are the idea people and there's the doers. The idea people are usually really enthusiastic, and the doers are more subdued. They get it done. That kind of came out in both. A worry that I had was the presentation on we look for ways that we can preserve things. We look for ways that we can preserve when we built Jefferson. Look what it got us.
Yeah, awful, absolutely
Okay.
true.
Oftentimes when you look, okay, this was an exterior wall that we're now is an interior wall. Where do your leaks come, Nolan? So those were things that were kind of red flags for me as someone that isn't in construction or that sort of thing. I had those concerns. Ultimately, whoever you choose, and I hope that everyone will remember this, they talk about you working with teachers because they know what they need in their classroom. I'm doing this, whomever I work with, I'm handing this building off to someone else. Whatever I have as my vision today, somebody else is going to need that space for something different. Whatever instruction looks like today in a classroom, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, it's going to look completely different. So whomever we choose, whomever you choose, make sure you choose somebody that creates a space that is flexible enough that it's like a cell phone. As soon as you bought it, the technology is obsolete. As soon as this is built, it's going to be brand new and shiny. But whatever we say today is the trend in education, it's going to be obsolete. So it's got to be flexible. So I just challenge you to keep that in mind, because we're all handing this building off to somebody else. Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. Now, Banner.
So Robin Brown with Banner. So I've actually worked with both architectural firms on a recent 2 high school projects that they both mentioned. So it's kind of a unique opportunity now to sit over here and see the presentation. So I think both are capable to do this. We can talk about Integris first. We can talk, they have a good team. And they talked about budget, which is important. We want to make sure they're doing this. They talked about their development of the education specs and involvement of the community. They have started that already, and on the Stevens School. They have experience in GCCM, and the project that I worked with them is not a GCCM project, so I don't have that expertise with them. one of the things that they were looking at in their GCCM experience and just maintaining budget, maintaining schedule was something that they did talk about. And I'm kind of like, not to make, but just to, I just want to confirm I'm talking with my observations, no conclusions. The SETI worked with them on a high school project as well, which was a GCCM. And each one of those projects were developing the aspects at the same time for both schools. And both teams at the time did talk about their collaboration to develop those education specs for individual communities, but for the same district. I think the approach that the SETI has as far as how they, start with the beginning and go all the way through, and getting the community, talking with the tribes, they did well in their explanation of that process. They did talk about staying on budget and how they managed to stay on budget. And this is something that we've been focusing on the Stevens project. For a small district, how do you maintain budget through this design, especially on the size campus? And then their experience with GCCM is a project I'm working with them now is GCCM, and so they have that expertise that I'm familiar with, and they did well in that. I think all of you mentioned their number of projects that they listed. I did see that number compared to what Integris has, so you can draw your conclusions on that part. But I guess in conclusion, whatever decision you make, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
One more thing. I know you're going to have a difficult decision.
Good morning, Maggie with Banner. So a couple of observations then, starting with Integris. I thought they had a pretty good idea about maybe do that student outreach using social media and some of the technical things. I thought that was probably a pretty innovative approach for them to think about that. I think they had a pretty good long-term conversation about using durable materials. I think that has been a consistent theme for them. They talked about kind of using destructive testing, but also this camera. So I thought that was kind of interesting on how they were going to get in there to try to find what's going on in the structure. And then again, the model, that is a good example of how they kind of draw people in and get that collaboration. So I thought that was pretty good. As far as the city, they did appear to come in to me as kind of a more, with a very global, intense project oversight. They were looking at a lot of different components through the whole phase of the project. They did mention that they have their team committed. They made that specific. They also talked about their office staff being committed, plus a deep bench of committed sub-consultants. So I thought that was a good point. I like the conversation about the joint steering committee. Like, I think no matter how you go forward, I think pulling those teams together for that, to mine the information that everybody has to make sure that it specs and consistency of materials and beam is brought all together. I thought they did show good examples with some of the different schools and the innovative solutions that they could come up with to try to save, whether it was the ductwork or stacking mechanical equipment, that kind of thing, and then how they were going to bring that into the auditorium. And then one point that they made was funding for the PRC, and I like to see that they're thinking that way, thinking about the interim spaces for students and working with the contractor. So I liked that deep thought into the whole phasing of the project. So I thought they came with that preparation. And then, a lot of technical considerations throughout the whole different. I know there's camaraderie, and that is very valuable, and they did have that kind of, and then the SETI did have a technical side of it, so, two very good components, so. That's my two bits.
Thanks. All right. Which one do you want to go first? No?
So yesterday, after those interviews, I told you today would be a really tough decision, and I think we have seen that with Integris. When they came in, I liked a lot of what they had to say. And I have worked with them. It would be easy to work with them on this next project. It would be easy to work with Besetti for this next project, but for Integris, there were several things that stood out that they called out to me. If we just start, they talked about daylighting, and they went right into, and we know how important daylight or light is into a building. And they talked about how they were going to achieve that in the classroom. They talked about exterior door safety and security, and that was one of the things that we started with the capital levy is how do we get our schools safer and secure. They hit on that. They talked about what they have done with the Lower Club tribe, and we've seen that firsthand. When they talked about the ed spec, they also talked that they had to align with the PAC in the district, the district management team. So there's one thing about having an ed spec, but there's also coming back and talking to us and making sure that fits what our strategic goals are. So they talked about that. For the auditorium, they talked about the destructive testing. They did do the study and survey so that they have got more knowledge on that than anybody does. They've done and yeah, they talked about in the auditorium adding more teaching and learning space. And that's one thing that right now we have theater production and other classes. They use the auditorium, but they can't get to the lights. They can't get to work on some of the things that they need to in the theater and move forward. They recognize that and talked a little bit about it. So I thought they did great. I thought their presentation was tailored to Port Angeles School District. As far as Besetti, I think that they have more talent came today than we'll see on any other high school group. I think that they can do it for us, and they're very good. I would agree with what Kyle and Steve and Sean had said, that I don't think that they tailored it towards Port Angeles School District. I think it was more of just a generic presentation, but I thought it was really good. When Sandy asked him about the bathrooms, I thought that his answer coming in cold was very, very good. That he knew about no dead ends, that he knew about single-use bathrooms, that was a very good answer that he answered real quick. Their experience at the high school level is unmatched that I've seen. And they also, just the little things they called out during phase construction, that you have a phased turnover, that it takes time to make those switches and manage those switches. They talked about teaching and learning during construction. So I was impressed with both firms today. I do think that Integris was more tailored toward the Port Angeles School District. Thank you.
You have a hard decision, I'll start with that. But I agree with what's been said so far, like both firms incredibly talented and skilled, both come with lots of experience, so we're fortunate that way. It really resonated with me when we heard from Kyle earlier about the concept of risk. And we talk about that a lot at this table, and thinking about that, so that got me thinking a little bit. And so I understand, that both firms looked at the phases, they're looking at the technical pieces, but we also know the importance here in Port Angeles of community. And of being student-focused and having connections and building trust with the community. And that doesn't happen overnight. And so while one firm may be able to talk about doing it, we also have another firm that's demonstrated that, not only just with all of us here, but with our community. And when we ask the questions around the GCCM and how you're gonna work to bring in our local community, I thought that did really separate the two of them. I was disappointed in Bassetti's response. I was hoping they understood the importance of that to you as the board and our community. And I'm not sure that they did understand the value. On the flip side, with Integris, we know from experience that yes, while Forma was instrumental in bringing in a high number of bidders, we also know that Integris was right there with them and reaching out as well. And so we've seen the importance of building trust, and yes, I too was a little bit biased, so trying to be open, but we want to hit the ground running. We do want to learn from the work at Stevens as well. And so I think that was a missed opportunity from Bassetti to not make a connection back to lessons learned from Stevens and partnerships and things that are out there. So lots of good skill, but I think we need to also just remember the importance of community and understanding our vision as well. So hard decision.
Stan, you got anything you want to say?
Well, the city's layout is more what I envisioned for the high school. I think it should be moved to the south, but either one of them can do that. As far as, either one of them knocked it out of the park, so I'll defer.
Yeah, I'd be happy with either one. I'd asked the question about the model, and because to me it just didn't seem right. And then I looked at a map here and I was like, my question, which I maybe wasn't clear, was that that model did not, Integris' model did not have a defined boundary line. So I saw this giant piece of property, which was more than what this is with this little school stuck in the corner. So I had some concerns there. So when I saw there's the other solution, all of a sudden I was like, ooh, look at that. Bassetti to me spoke my language a little bit more, because I'm more of that idea of throw it out there, let's see where this goes. I liked the reusing materials, and then I liked their examples of older historical buildings with, I can't speak my language, some, I thought, really innovative solutions and elegant solutions. But again, I could be happy, I'd be totally happy with either one, so. Well, my plan today was to really listen about the safety piece and to listen about what the plan was for our auditorium, thank you, trying to get that word out. And because I just felt that's gonna be a really big piece, and it's really important to our whole community, and that will live on for a long time. It has given us years of great experiences within our community, and as good as, we're all pleased with our downtown addition, this will not replace what we've had. And I think that they had Integris had the best conversation about that. So that pulled me ahead for Integris.
I asked Sarah when we were walking down the hall to go to the ladies' room, can a presentation be too slick?